When I found this cool piece of lumber, I immediately imagined the crack filled with lava-colored epoxy resin and carbon fiber, and using it as a base for my dad's birthday gift. After cleaning out the loose bits of wood and debris, I coated the large crack with red glowing resin that was partially cured and very thick, so it pretty much stayed in place while it cured. Next, I wanted to add some forged carbon fiber into the lava flow, like cooled lava. The goal was to maintain the pattern in the forged fabric as much as possible, but trying to add in the resin after placing the carbon fiber was a complete failure. It looked nothing like the image in my head, and so I just pulled the whole mess out before it could cure. The next idea was to make some DIY pre-preg that could be cut to size with scissors and inserted neatly into the split. This is made by adding epoxy with a very long cure time and sandwiching the carbon fiber between two pieces of peel ply to partially cure just until it's workable but still slightly tacky. Unlike previous testing for the DIY pre-preg, this time I decided to speed up the process with a heating pad. Unfortunately, I underestimated just how fast the heat would work and ended up with carbon fiber sheets that are soft and formable, but not at all tacky. This seemed like it still might work, so I started cutting and experimenting with the forged and twill sheets, trying to find an orientation that looked good. But soon it became apparent that this was just not the right solution, so I scrapped it. For the third attempt at filling this crack, I stuck with just epoxy resin with dye and glow powder. To seal off the sides and keep the liquid epoxy inside the crack, I tried using gum tape meant for sealing vacuum bags. This leaked. The wood was too flaky and dusty to form a seal. After removing the gum tape and wiping up the resin drips, I instead closed up the sides with hot glue and craft sticks and poured in a new batch of resin. It seemed to be working, but actually, it was just leaking more slowly through small cracks at the bottom that I thought had been sealed with the first resin application, but apparently not. So I kept adding hot glue until the resin stopped escaping. To decrease the chance of leaking, I also once again let the resin partially cure before pouring. Although this ended up causing issues with trapped air bubbles that didn't have enough time to rise and pop before the resin cured. The hot glue was kind of difficult to remove from the wood, but I managed to scrape and peel it all away, and any surface damage was about to be removed on the belt sander anyways. The belt sander was the perfect tool to flatten out the overfilled resin and smooth and level all the sides. This is where I uncovered some air pockets caused by the partially cured resin, so these will need to be filled later on. Before going any further, I added a coat of sealer to all the exposed wood so it wouldn't get damaged while I worked on finishing the resin and adding the wood-burnt text. A little red epoxy worked to fill in the air bubble voids, and I also smoothed the resin over the whole lava crack to get a head start on polishing this area back to a gloss finish. The wooden lava block is the base for an eyeglasses stand, so next I needed to make a bracket to support the glasses. I used the forged carbon fiber sheet made earlier and cut two pieces a little larger than the final part needed to be. These were laminated to a piece of green glowing fiberglass. After the carbon fiberglass sandwich cured, I shaped the bracket piece using a rotary tool, permagrit sanding block, and fine sandpaper. I also cut a slot into the base where the bracket will be installed. But before attaching the bracket, I needed to burn some text into the top. I printed out a template for the design on regular paper and burned right through into the wood. With the basic lettering shape lightly marked, I removed the template and burned in the text more thoroughly. When installing the bracket, I dyed the resin black to cover the bright internal wood in the slot, and I also added a light coating to the bracket itself to fill any imperfections and to better integrate that green glass core with the rest of the design. With the black resin cured and securely bonding the bracket to the base, I filled the slot the rest of the way up with translucent red epoxy. The red tinted resin looked great on the wood and carbon fiber, so I used this as the final protective coating over the entire piece. After that cured, I polished up the lava cracks with polishing compound using the tiniest attachment on my polishing tool. I also added a note to dad on the underside with the wood burner. In the finished piece, that red resin brought out a lot of character with all the small cracks branching out from the large split, so I think for this application that was the right choice versus carbon fiber. The stand functions perfectly for holding a pair of eyeglasses, so they're always handy, but the coolest part is when you hit this thing with some UV light and get the lava glowing. I still like the concept of a forged carbon fiber river table type design, but I'll save that idea for a future project.